Well, I was not expecting that. Last week when I posted on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube whether or not any of you had questions for me, I was crossing my fingers and my toes that somebody would respond with a question. But you guys blew me away, and today I'm going to be answering your questions. Hi there, I'm Elise, and I am a certified crochet instructor and an amigurumi crochet and knitting addict. And today I'm going to be answering your questions. But one thing to know is that I got so many questions that I'm not going to be able to answer them all. And I am so sorry about that. I actually got over 100 questions. But the good news is that I answered a lot of these questions in previous videos, especially one that I called Answering Your Amigurumi Questions. And you're going to find a link for it in the description box below. But let's start with question number 1. Ashley Niley asked the question, what project did you love the end result, but you will never make it again? And you know what? That is an easy question to answer. I loved knitting Frog and Toad from the designer Frog and Cast, but I'm gonna be honest with you, there is no way that I will knit another pair of them again. And here's why. It was a very challenging project for me. I would consider myself an intermediate knitter, and I was able to get through the project, and I made a whole video about it. It took me such a long time to make, and I cannot tell you how many people have reached out to me to ask if they could buy them from me or would I make them a pair. And the answer is always, not gonna happen. These are gonna be mine forever and ever, and I'm never gonna make them again. But I do think they turned out adorable. They are so cute. And for that, I love them so much, but they're staying here with me. The next question is from Alan Lindsay. Any tips for packaging your amigurumi for sale? I think the package is always part of the gift, whether you're giving it or you're selling it. And one of the things that I've created is my amigurumi adoption kits. It's a way to create a memory with your amigurumi, not just a toy. It comes with an adoption certificate, matching gift tags, as well as a keepsake letter template. And you'll find a link to that and more information about the amigurumi adoption kits in the description box below. But I also just buy gift boxes off of Amazon, or there's another company called Uline if you need to buy them in bulk. And I just use a little bit of tissue paper. I also love the crinkle paper shredded thingies that you can put in boxes. I think those look really amazing with amigurumi. But also I love to use coordinating ribbon. So I love to pick out my little tag, and then I get the ribbon and it all matches with the amigurumi project, and it's just really fun. So yes, I think packaging is such an important part, and it can just take that toy to a whole new level. If I was unable to answer your question, please accept my sincerest apologies. I wish that I could have answered every single one, but I want to direct you to my blog. There you will find an exhaustive, well, it's not exhaustive, but there's a lot of information on my blog about crocheting, knitting, amigurumi, and handmade business topics. So if you just go to lepetitsaintcrochet.com, you will find a menu there, and you will be able to look at all those different categories. And when you click on that category, you'll find even more subcategories, and you can look through all of those. There's also a little search button right there, and you can put in any topic that you want to search for, and all of the different blog posts will come up. In each one of those blog posts, it has a video for it as well. So you'll find a link to it in the description box below. Let's go on to the next question. Corgi Crocheting 47 asked, what made you fall in love with making amigurumi? And I love this question so much. And I came to amigurumi during a very, very stressful time in my life. My son was really sick, and it was so stressful, and I began crocheting during that time, and that was fall of 2016. And I really was focusing on granny squares, and then I started to make little baby clothes. I don't know why I was making baby clothes. At the time, I didn't have any babies I knew in my life, but I just loved making little baby girl clothes. It was so much fun. I was using the wonderful tutorials from Woolly Wonders Crochet, and then I noticed one day that she had a tutorial for a toy, and I thought, well, that's for other people. People like this lady right here cannot crochet toys because you must have some kind of superhuman talent to be able to do that. But one night I was up late, and I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna try. This is the little rabbit that I made, and I know he's kind of funky looking, but at that time, on that December night of 2017, I fell in love with him, and I thought, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? I just made this with my own 2 hands, and I was hooked. Literally, pun intended. There really isn't a utilitarian purpose this for amigurumi. It's a toy. It's to make somebody happy and to bring a smile to someone's face. And at that moment, I really, really needed that smile. I needed that joy in my life, and it has continued to bring happiness and fun into my life ever since. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with other people, because I think this world needs a little more happiness and fun, and that's why I love sharing about it. And that's why I love making it too. Bethany Johnson asked, how do you pick the colors for your granny square projects? They are quite striking. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Second of all, one of my best resources is Pinterest. Pinterest has an amazing selection, number one, of granny square projects. So you can always just look for granny squares on Pinterest, and there's going to be so many beautiful projects where you can get color inspiration from. But also another thing that Pinterest has are color palettes. And basically it chooses all of these different colors that all coordinate and look beautiful together. One thing that you can look for is seasonal. So if you have a color that you love, say it's a blush pink, and you know you want to use that with your granny square project, you could go onto Pinterest and search for blush pink color palette fall season. And that will give you all of these beautiful color palettes that you can look at, and they have coordinating colors and they are gorgeous. You could choose warm tones, cool tones. You could choose other seasons. I just happen to love fall. It's my favorite. That's a really great way to look for inspiration for colors for your granny squares. Another great tip is something that I learned from knitting colorwork. So you get the two colors that you want to use for your granny squares, and you're going to get those two strands, twist those strands together. If they just look like one color, it's not going to make a great granny square because there's not going to be any contrast to it. But if you can see that contrast really good, then that is a good clue that those colors are going to work well together and that they're going to pop and look really good. Small Things Stitches asked, can we see some wedding themed makes? Congrats to your family. My daughter is getting married. We are so excited. This is our oldest daughter, and it's the first one of our kids to get engaged. It's just so exciting. The wedding is next summer, so we've got about 11 months until the wedding. I'm definitely going to be looking for crocheted and knitted wedding themed projects, and I will be sure to share them with you all as well. Gabrielle Nofall asked, how did you get the idea to start a YouTube channel? And that actually happened pretty quickly after I started crocheting, because I fell in love so hard and so fast, and I knew that I wanted to do something more than just make it at home and not talk about it, because my family didn't want to hear me blabber on about it all the time. So I knew I needed an outlet. And at the same time, I was coming to the end of being a homeschool mom. I had homeschooled all 4 of my children from the time they were in kindergarten all the way to graduation, and I knew that I needed to find something to do, and this was just a natural fit. And I found a course from Lisa from Farmhouse on Boone, and I took the course, and she shared how to do a blog, how to make a YouTube channel, and I knew that this was the path that I wanted to take. So that's how it all happened. Chandra B asked the question, have you ever gotten into pattern testing or tech editing for other creators? And if so, what was the process like? I have a more in-depth resource for this, and it's my video, Can You Make Money from Crocheting and Knitting? And I'm going to link that in the description box below, especially for those of you who want to understand tech editing a little bit more. But pattern testing and tech editing really are two different things. As a pattern tester, you are doing a wonderful service for the designer by testing the pattern that they have written, by actually making the pattern and giving back your feedback. Now, a tech editor is actually something very different, and you actually need to be trained to be a tech editor. That is a person that a designer will hire to tech edit their pattern. The tech editor is not going to make the pattern. They are going to make sure that the language of the pattern is correct in terms of how it is worded, and they're going to make sure that your math adds up as well. They're more technical. Those are actually two different roles, and I wanted you all to understand the difference between the two. But I have done pattern testing before, and I actually have a funny story. I was testing for Amigurumi by Ghoulie, her Cody the crocodile pattern, and I was going along and everything was great, and I got to the little pumpkin shoes, and I was on the struggle bus. I could not figure out what she was trying to have you do. I kept looking at the picture, I kept looking at the pattern, and I just really got frustrated, and finally I just emailed her and said, I can't do it. I'm a total failure. I am not able to finish this little pattern, and I'm so sorry. Your crocodile is so cute, and I'm an idiot, and I don't know what I'm doing. She emailed me back, and she kind of laughed and just said, you know, I am left-handed, so if you're looking at the photos, it might be confusing a little bit. And I just thought, Oh my goodness, I am so dumb. So once I figured out that she was crocheting with her left hand and that the photos were left-handed, it all clicked and I was good from that point forward. But the other sad thing about that Cody the crocodile is here's what he looks like now, because my mom's dog, Pippa, love her to death. She's wonderful, but she got a hold of Cody the crocodile and ripped his face off, and I just haven't fixed him yet. The next question is from Tracy Fletcher, and it's about pain from crocheting. She's had some operations and giving up crochet is not an option. And I do have a lot of good information for you because I have struggled with pain as well. I actually did a whole entire video about 10 ways to ease pain when crocheting and knitting, and I will leave a link for it in the description box below. I also have another suggestion, and this was a comment to that question from Gina Phillips, and she recommended these compression gloves that you can buy, and they're specifically for people with arthritis. You can use them for a lot of different pain elements, especially if you're having them in the hand. And so I would recommend checking the link in the description box below for those compression gloves. They actually sell them at craft stores and have them at Amazon, and I think that that might be worth a shot since it's not very expensive. But I hope you get some relief. I totally understand not wanting to give up, but suffering with pain. So my heart really does go out to you. Beastly Beauty 12 asked about how to find her style when she is new to crochet. She's done some cottagecore projects, some character projects, some cartoony projects, and she just wants to find her very own style. And first of all, I congratulate you for trying a lot of different things, and I honestly think that that's the way that you're going to find your own style. It really does just take time, and it helps to just make a lot of things and find what really inspires you. I'm one of these people that if I like the project, I'm going to make it. It doesn't matter to me what style it is, whether it's cottagey or whether it's cartoony or whether it's really nerdy. It doesn't matter to me. I do think that as I design, I definitely have a style, and I'm very drawn to vintagey looking things, and that's really what my style is. But when it comes to just making, I want to make them all. I love all of the different projects. So keep experimenting and see what really speaks to you. The next question is from Karen Davis, and it's about the advantages of knitting amigurumi toys and the advantages of crocheting amigurumi toys. And I think this one is a really interesting question, but there definitely are advantages and disadvantages to both. The first advantage for knitting toys is that there really are two different ways that you can knit toys. You can either knit them in the round on double pointed needles, or you can knit them flat and seam them. And that really is more unique. I know that there are crocheted flat toys, but they're not shaped the same way. So toys that are knitted flat can be just as round and three-dimensional as toys that are knit in the round on double pointed needles. And that really isn't the same with crocheting. If you crochet them in the round, they're definitely going to be three-dimensional. But if you crochet a panel and another panel and you sew them together, it's not quite as three-dimensional. So I think that's one of the advantages of knitting. The other advantage of knitting toys is that they tend to be squishier. They're not as solid and structural as crocheted toys. So it gives them a very squishy, soft feeling to them. But the advantages of crocheting toys is that there are so many more crocheted amigurumi patterns than there are knitting patterns. It's not even comparable. Yes, there are knitted toy patterns out there, but there are tons and tons of crocheted amigurumi toys. And I also do believe that crocheting amigurumi is a little bit simpler and easier for beginners to start. So if you didn't have crocheting or knitting experience at all, I would say crocheting amigurumi is easier. And also stuffing amigurumi is so much simpler. Many of you had questions about how to stuff knitted toys, and really it is about shaping. So when you're stuffing crocheted amigurumi, you're just stuffing so it's very nice and firm. But with knitting, it really is about shaping. You want to put the stuffing exactly where you want things to bulge out. If you're doing the leg, you want to stuff it firmly, but not to stretch out those stitches, because knitting is very stretchy. It's so much more stretchy than crocheted stitches. So I have a video for those of you who are interested in knitting toys, and it is all about the face. It's called Focus on the Face for knitted toys. And I talk a lot about how to do the stuffing in the face. So if you want the cheeks to be a little bit puffy, you're going to add stuffing into those areas. But for crocheting, it's so much easier to stuff because you just stuff until it's nice and full. Those would be the advantages and disadvantages of both of those, crafts. Goddess of Gore asked the question, have I ever suffered from craft burnout? She had run an Etsy store for about 3 months, and that was 2 years ago, and she hasn't wanted to pick up her crochet hook since. And I totally understand where you're coming from. The only time I have ever experienced burnout when it came to crocheting or knitting was when I was trying to sell finished toys. It's really hard to maintain that passion when you are pumping out toy after toy after toy. And my recommendation would be to find a project that's just for you. Maybe it's not even crocheting amigurumi, maybe it's crocheting something that you just really love, or with some beautiful yarn that you've been saving up for, and just see if that can spark your joy. Or maybe you could take a class or join a local crocheting and knitting group, because maybe you're just missing some of that camaraderie, that community aspect of crocheting and knitting. And if you try those different things and nothing seems to be working, I think it's okay. Let it go for a while, but I bet eventually that crochet bug is gonna bite you again and you're gonna be happily stitching away one of these days. There were also a lot of questions about how to get started with knitting toys, and this is really the same advice I give to people who want to start crocheting toys. If you have never knit before, I highly recommend learning the basics of knitting first. It's always better to feel comfortable with holding the needles in your hand and holding the yarn and understanding knit and purl without having to add on all of the different things about knitted toys. So get really comfortable with knitting the basics. I have 2 resources online that I recommend, and that's the YouTube channels Sheep and Stitch and Very Pink Knits. I also am totally obsessed with the Vogue knitting book. It's their ultimate knitting resource, and it really is an encyclopedia of knitting. There are so many great things in there, like how to pick up stitches, how to do the mattress seam, all of these different things that you're going to need to know how to do when you're knitting toys. Sometimes it helps me to see it in book form with illustrations, so I think that's a really great resource, and you'll find the links for all of those in the description box below. Christina Clayton asked a question about my YouTube channel, and she wants to know, do I edit my videos myself or do I hire a professional to do it for me? So I'm the only one that does everything. I am a solopreneur. I edit all my own videos, and I use iMovie because that's the one that is free on my computer, and it was a very steep learning curve for me. And I know that there are other editing software out there, but right now that's just a little too complicated for this old brain. So I'm happy with iMovie right now, and yes, I edit all of my own videos. Regular viewer Cheryl Davis asked if I had any plans to publish a crochet doll pattern that had crochet toy. Oh, how many times I've tried to say this sentence. Regular viewer Cheryl Davis asked if I had any plans to publish a crocheted toy with crocheted clothing. Did I say that right? I think so. And the answer, Cheryl, is yes. I've got a lot of ideas bubbling around in my brain, and one of these days I'm gonna get that done. Chip Andrada wants to know, how long does it take me to finish one of my amigurumi projects? And it really varies, but I always like to give myself 2 weeks to be able to get done with a project. Sometimes it takes less time and sometimes it takes more. Jennifer Kennedy asked this really interesting question. Do I like the process or the product of crocheting and knitting toys? I love the product of both crocheting and knitting toys, but if I had to choose the process for one, it would be knitting. And the reason why is that knitting is definitely more challenging for me, and I really enjoy learning new things. So when I'm knitting a toy, I'm enjoying it a little bit more because I have to focus really hard when I knit toys than crocheting them. Crocheting them is really nice when I want to relax because I've crocheted so many amigurumi toys, and so many of them are very similar in their construction, and I can just whip it out. But for knitting, I have to pay really close attention, and I really, really like that. I'm having a hot flash. Whew. Sorry about that. I gotta fan myself off for a minute. I know some of y'all know exactly how I'm feeling right now. Whew. So my favorite YouTube vlogger, Dawn Bruxton from the YouTube channel Dawn Stays, asked me this question. What was my favorite make and why? And I really have to say that my 3 Little Pigs pattern is my absolute favorite make. And the reason why is that for several years I had wanted to design amigurumi, but I just didn't really feel that I was really any good at it. And I had experimented a little bit and put out a couple of patterns, but I never really felt happy about it. I just thought, yeah, they're okay. I put them out there. But it wasn't until I finally designed my 3 little pigs that I just was like, oh my goodness, I designed something that I really, really love. So, because I didn't believe in myself. And I think that it has taught me that many of us do this. Now, this isn't just me. We limit ourselves because we think, oh, well, I can't do that. And I've noticed that in my life over and over again, is that I limit myself. And then eventually I'm able to do what I never thought I was able to do. So I hope that that's an encouragement to you, that there are things in your life that maybe you really want to do. Don't hold yourself back. Donna asked this question, and I want to make sure that I read it correctly for you. Hi Elise, do you get bored crocheting the same popular amigurumi animal? My bunny design is so popular with customers, but I would like to come up with different animals. If I was making the same toy over and over again, yes, I would definitely get bored. One thing that you might want to do is to label each toy as a limited edition, that you're only going to make a certain number, or you're only going to make it for a certain amount of time, and then it's going to retire, and then the next toy is going to be available. I think that number one, that's going to help with your boredom, because you're going to be able to change it up and come up with different patterns and different projects that you're going to be excited about. But number two, it's going to create some excitement for your customers to be like, oh my goodness, this little bunny rabbit is going to be gone soon. If I'm going to order it, I better order it now. They also are going to think, oh my goodness, I cannot wait to see what other designs she comes up with and what her next toy for sale is going to be. I think it's really important when you're making finished toys for sale that you've got to be interested in it. You have to be excited about it. That could be a way for you to keep your excitement, but at the same time make your customers happy as well. Janelle Taylor CEO asked if I had ever felt like giving up on my business and how did I push through it. Janelle, honey, yes, I have wanted to give up more times than I could count, because being a solopreneur, it can get really hard, especially when you have other responsibilities, whether you have a job or you have a family. And some days you don't feel like getting to work, and it can be really hard, especially when you're not making a lot of money and when you just feel like you're not making any progress. And the best thing I can do when that happens is to take a little bit of a break, give myself some space, and allow myself to sort of throw a mental tantrum about the whole thing and think, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I think sometimes you do just need to take a break. Give yourself some time off. Let yourself be angry about it and be disappointed, and then pick yourself back up and get right back to work. Because one of the things that I have really learned over these last few years of running my handmade business is that most people are gonna quit, but you're not gonna quit. You're going to succeed because you're not gonna quit. And that is what I have been drilling into my own head, is that by pushing through is where the success is going to come from. And yes, it's wonderful when something pops off and things are going great and it's easy and you're excited to get out of bed, but it's the people who get out of bed and keep working even when they don't feel like doing it, even when they think this isn't happening, nothing is going my way, nobody cares about what I'm doing. That's when you've got to push through. And I'm talking to myself too right now, and I have found that those times that I've pushed through, I've always gotten a little nugget, a little bit of encouragement to help me to keep going. So look for those little nuggets, give yourself a break when you need to, and then give yourself a kick in the pants when you need it as well. Valerie Ehrman asked if I ever felt guilty while crocheting, and the answer is absolutely not. I never ever feel guilty about crocheting, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Mama needs to crochet because I am a much happier, better person for being a crocheter and a knitter. But number two, I really don't do a lot of crocheting and knitting during the day. That's for taking care of my business, and it's also for taking care of my family. So I only sit down and crochet or knit at night when we are sitting down as a family, so I'm not taking anything away from them. I am still doing all the other things that I need to, but no, I don't feel guilty about crocheting and knitting. It makes me a better person, and I think all of my family would say that I'm never allowed to give it up because it does make me a better wife, a better mom, a better daughter, all of those things. So don't feel guilty about crocheting. That's okay to have something that's for you, that you love, and that brings so much to your life. So no, don't feel guilty. I hope I answered your question. I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe out there and happy stitching.